All right, back at the Milwaukee Pipeline event here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I actually think we're Menominee Falls or somewhere. They have a lot of facilities here. They're all over the place. But back at this really, really special event for this very special podcast, I'm joined by the famous, is it all right to say that?
Yeah, sure.
Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So you got a chance to look around the show, and you got a chance to check some things out. Anything strike you right off the bat of some cool stuff that's coming out?
Oh yeah, they have the new M12 battery powered ratchet, which I'm extremely excited about it. And anybody who watches my content knows how much I love ratchets. So they knocked it out of the park. I'm very, very excited.
Did you get to use it a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. What stuck out to you there?
It's smaller, stronger, faster. They modular triggers, which I've been asking for a button instead of the bar for a couple years now.
That was cool.
So that when they said that at the beginning announcement thing or whatever, that was me asking every year. So that's been me asking for that. So they finally did it, and they did it way better than I expected. So having anything modular is a great idea. So they did an awesome job. Yeah, super pumped about that.
So we're going to start this podcast a little differently than we have done with the other podcasts that we're doing here. And just learning more about what you're doing at Enright Automotive, what you're doing with all of your social channels, just everything that you're doing. You're doing a lot out there. You're kind of everywhere, and it's really cool to see the growth that you've had, the success that you've had. But before we get to all of that, I do like the origin story. I do like to hear where you came from and what got you into this industry in the first place. So let's start there. What got you into this?
So actually, funnily enough, my brother bought a 96 Acura Integra and started modifying it, and so that's what got me like into cars. And so when I started driving, I started doing the same thing to my vehicles, and so I just started working on my own stuff, and I really enjoyed it. And then after high school, or when you're getting ready to graduate, the famous question, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I actually took 3 years off and just worked and just hanging out with my friends, and finally I was like, I should probably figure out what I want to do with my life. And so I went to UTI. I started out in Rancho Cucamonga, California, went out there, stayed there went to school there for like 5 or 6 months, and then we moved for some reasons and actually came completely across the country, and I finished in Exton, Pennsylvania at UTI.
Wow.
Yeah, and then came back home. It was between Chicago and Pennsylvania because we wanted to be closer to home. And so I was married, so my wife and I got married very young. She was 19, I was 21. And so we were married, and I was like, well, I want to try to be closer to home. So once I graduated from UTI, then I tried finding a job and couldn't find a job, which tells you how much the industry has changed. And I've been in it almost 17 years, and anybody that wanted to hire me was entry level lube tech. And I'm like, I just paid a lot of money for college. I cannot afford to make minimum wage as a lube tech. I need to make some money, because I was getting paid at other jobs a lot more money that was not in the field. And so I actually got a job with Napa delivering parts, because I was like, well, this is going to be easy. What I'll do is I'll get a job for Napa, deliver parts to automotive shops, and that'll be my end. And it worked. That's what happened.
Super smart.
So I was delivering in, there was a shop about 25 minutes from where I lived, and he had fired his long-term, he had been working for him for 18 years and hired me to take his place. So I got a super crazy crash course beginning in the industry, because I was taking a guy's spot that had been in it for 18 years. And it worked out well. I don't know how, have no clue why, but the second year that I worked there was their best year ever that they'd ever had at the shop. So that was really cool to know. But it was also a very harsh environment. So the owner was a pretty angry person, lots of screaming, lots of yelling. And I think honestly that's what helped me propel my career, because I never liked to ask questions because I don't want to hear him scream and yell about stuff. So it forced me to figure it out and learn it. So it wasn't a great environment, but I did it. So I don't recommend that, but it worked for me. So that's kind of what propelled my career.
I want to talk more about that, and maybe we'll shift to a cultural aspect of this once we get through your intro. But the screaming and yelling and how that's maybe changed over the years, or maybe sometimes not.
Yeah.
But I did have a couple questions to pick out of your story. What did you do for those 3 years where you had the gap?
So I actually worked at an ice cream store.
Really?
Yeah. So I actually worked for two. I was a manager for a Cold Stone Creamery, and I worked for another ice cream store. So I'd go to Cold Stone Creamery from, I think I worked 7 to 4, and then I would go work at the other ice cream shop from 5 to 10.
Wow.
So I would leave, and the Cold Stone was like 45 minutes away. So I would leave really early in the morning and then just drive straight from Cold Stone, because it was quite almost exactly an hour from Cold Stone to the other ice cream store. And so that's what I did for several years. Yeah, it wasn't a great choice, but
Well,
I was making money. So
And that, you mentioned that you making that career choice because it gave you a livable wage at that point, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I think has been a barrier for us in the industry for a long time, is getting that young technician off the ground, and how hard it is.
it is hard. And like, I had done what a lot of beginner technicians did, and I wasn't even in the industry yet, but I had put myself in a lot of debt. And I was married, or not quite yet married, but I was going to be married. And so my wife was going to be introduced to all of this debt. So I was trying to do what I could to just pay all of those payments. So it forced me to work. That was the thing to do. Everybody said, go out and get credit cards and go out and do this. And so I did all that, and I regretted every single bit of it. And that's why I don't have debt anymore, because I hate it, because I was the poster child for what having a lot of debt looked like at a very young age. And so, I've run my entire business off of cash. I've grown it the entire time from the beginning to the end on cash. It's not easy, and it's a lot slower growth than some people are comfortable with, but it's what I've done, and it's worked for me. So
Well, let's talk about that shop a little bit.
Yeah.
What led you up to making the leap to start your own shop?
lots of frustration.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of frustration. I have that question a lot on social media, and I tell people frustration is what drove me to the shop. It's not what I recommend. I recommend don't wait to that point. Take the leap sooner. I wish I would have started my shop a little bit sooner, but it's worked out. We've been super blessed. We started February of 2020, so a month before COVID and all that craziness.
That's tough timing.
It was not great, let me tell you. It was very interesting for sure, but we did well. I mean, we grew, and even with all the uncertainty, we did good. So I was, like I said, blessed for sure.
How nervous were you in March of 2020?
Very nervous. There's just a lot of just a lot of unknowns about everything, and I knew that we were going to continue working, but people aren't driving. So I'm like, who in the world's going to fix their car? They're not driving right now. So, but they did, and a lot of our clients didn't phase them, didn't change anything, nothing. So
yeah,
it worked out.
I remember that time with our own business with WrenchWay, and just it wasn't even terrifying. It was more like, I just don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And it was an interesting time. And similar to you, we were scheduled to launch WrenchWay off of the other business we had in March of 2020, and then ended up delaying it. We actually put something together called Support Repair Shops, where we just kind of gave it away to people, and just to help with them with cash flow, helped people buy gift cards through these. It was a long time ago, and it was really just trying to put something together, because you were, at least we were, worried about the industry as a whole, and what can we do to make sure that shops are able to stick around?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was just so much uncertainty. You just didn't know what was going to happen or what was going to be done and what was changing. Like, so many things changed, which there was some really good that came out of it. I think it forced a lot of shops to realize they didn't have to have huge waiting rooms and have to have all these waiters. For so long in our industry, we've been so focused on having the client dictate the way we run business, and we're so we think that we have to get the vehicle done. I still do it to this day, and it's a habit I'm breaking every single day. Is most people will make it work if you just tell them, I can't get it done today.
Right.
Like, okay, we'll make it work. But we put the pressure on ourselves. Now, there are people out there that want their cars back. I understand that. But as a whole, most people can figure something out and make it work. And so we put that pressure that isn't actually there a lot of times. So it helped in those areas for sure. So I don't have a waiting room in my shop. So I have 2 loaner vehicles, which is very abnormal for an independent shop, let alone a small independent shop. But for that reason, because we don't do waiters.
Yeah, so. I like that. we talked a little bit, even that part with communication, right? And being able to communicate with a customer and set that expectation up front. You not having a waiting room makes that much easier to have that conversation, right?
Yeah, it does. It helps a lot. I still do have people that want to wait. And every now and again, I will have someone like randomly, it's like less than 1% of my clients, but I open technically at 8:30. I'm usually in the shop by 7. I'll have them come in at 8. So it's like it's a half hour before I actually open. Yeah, you can wait. Like if it's a customer that I've already like just recently done a ton of work, or it's a newer car and I know it's not going to need much of anything else, and I have time to do my inspection and everything else, I will do that. But it's very, very rare.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the screaming and yelling part, because that was how I grew up in industry. Was just holding some of these fabulous Milwaukee wrenches. I remember a lot of those wrenches flying across the shop when I was growing up. Do you see any change or shift there in the industry as a whole?
That's a good question. I do see a trend for sure. So I'm in between, like, so I'm a millennial. I was born in 86. And so I am in between like that boomer phase and like the Gen Zers, and I don't know all the different names, but a lot of the younger generations need more affirmations. They need to be told they're doing a good job. And then the older generations say, you're getting paid, do your job. Like there's a huge gap, and I'm in between them. I've always like felt I just do the job, like no matter what, but I want to hear that I'm doing a good job every now and again. I felt like that's how it was at the dealership. The only time they ever knew, or I felt like I existed, was when I made a mistake. If I turned 113 hours in a week, they didn't come and say, hey, great job. It was, oh, hey, you have this comeback, and now they're harping on me. So that cultural change needs to shift more. I do think it is changing, and I do see a lot more owners like making a conscious effort towards that. But it's a unfortunately slow change that I've seen so far, at least my personal perspective.
I actually had a technician once talk to me about the technician shortage, and one of the things that he mentioned to me that I didn't have a great rebuttal to is, he said, Jay, why would I want the technician shortage to get any better? He said, I'm getting paid better than I ever have. I'm being treated with more respect than I ever have. And, you know, it was a unique perspective when I was talking to him, and we had a great conversation about it, because he had some valid points, but at the same time, I felt like, okay, for the betterment of the industry, we need to get more talented people into this industry. And I don't know that, he had, again, some valid points, but the screaming and yelling that I think we grew up with, and especially with young techs, we have a lot of attrition with young techs coming into the industry. And I think that's a big piece of that, right? Is because they get paralyzed because they're getting yelled at rather than maybe that positive affirmation. And I was guilty of that when I was first coming into the industry too, right? Where it was, you make a mistake and it felt like your face was rubbed in that mistake for months, right? And you lost that level of trust, which, you know what, we work on vehicles that if you don't do it right, could end up in a really bad situation. So
absolutely,
I think a lot of it comes down to the communication and maybe some of the laying the foundation for that person to be successful. But I think we still also, out of the opposite side of my mouth, we'll take a young person and put them in the shop and be disappointed that they're not performing within 3 months, right? And I think there's that gap that still remains.
There is, for sure, and culture's huge. Like I will argue, and you can find surveys for everything, and I will argue that culture is just as, if not more important than pay. I went from making $70,000 a year to $27,000 a year, from going from a dealership to helping my brother start a new business, and I was much happier at $27,000 a year than I ever was at $70,000 at the dealership. I wanted more culture. I wanted something. I wanted people to treat me better, at least have some respect. I always told my managers at the dealership and at the indie shops that I worked at, is like, no one will ever beat me up more than me when I make a mistake.
100%.
I beat myself up. I'm very hard on myself. I don't need you to come out. If you want to have a conversation and ask me what happened, like, hey, what happened? Like,
absolutely,
that's fine. Let's have a conversation. My head was not in it. Something's going on at home. Life happens. Like, people don't they don't want to. They say, oh, keep your life at home. It's not reality. That does not happen with anybody, especially nowadays in social media and everything. So that's not a realistic expectation. We need to be more understanding of people and try to figure out where they're at. Come to them and have a conversation, a cordial conversation, no screaming, yelling. It's actually really not that hard. And I'm not like the most patient person in the world, but it's not hard to have a calm conversation with someone.
Yeah, we just had an author on the podcast that Dave Anderson. It was just a phenomenal podcast, and he talked through communication style and being able to effectively get whatever that message is over to an employee. And as he was talking about it, I couldn't help but think about the manager-technician relationship. And what he was saying is, as soon as somebody starts yelling, the other person kind of turns off a switch. Yep. That is, you're not going to be engaging, and they're not going to learn anything from it that's going to make them a better employee moving forward. And I couldn't agree more. Right? Yeah. I think that's an issue in our industry. And as you mentioned, I do think it's gotten better. I do think we're getting more leadership training to some of our young managers that are coming into it. You talked about ASTA, some of the other opportunities that are out there for maybe that shop owner that's looking for opportunities to become a better leader. Yeah. The resources are out there now to become a good leader.
They're beyond. I mean, there's so many different resources. I think a big part of it is most people don't know they exist, and they don't see the ROI on training. And the easiest way to put it is you're not going to physically see, like, you're not going to be able to put it down on paper, the ROI. You just can't do it. But you have to get there and go to one first. And that's a hard choice. I get it. I was randomly, I told you my story last night when we talked, and I randomly just decided that I was going to go to a training event. Had never been to any sort of training event in my entire life. I didn't even know they existed at all in the automotive industry. And it was the pivotal point in my business to start making changes, because I was not profitable. I was not making any money. And I always felt I still have I'm not that far removed from being a tech. And I always felt like I want to pay my techs well, because I always felt I needed to be paid well because I did a good job. So if I have a good tech, I want to pay them well. Well, when I started looking at my numbers, I realized that was never going to happen. Yeah. So I couldn't pay them jack squat. So that made me really have a mindset shift, because, there's a lot of that out there, especially on social media, as I do a lot of, and there's this mindset that mechanics need to be cheap. And I don't know if it's because so many people have cars and a lot of people think they can do everything. There's a horrible communication gap with owners, advisors, and technicians as a whole to clients. As a whole, as an industry, we're horrible at communication. Yeah. So when we communicate those things to people, we do a terrible job. Like we said, oh, hey, let me pull that car and I'll take a look at it. We're not looking at it.
Yeah.
We're testing, we're evaluating, we're diagnosing. There's so many different things, and then we don't want to take the time to document it and say, hey, this is why we charged you $150 to diagnose your car. This is what we did. This is all the work we put into it. There's value there. But if you just put on there, diagnosis $150,
it doesn't help.
There's nothing there. So just as an industry as a whole, we've done a terrible job at communicating to people. So I get the gap and why that's there, but I don't get why everybody thinks that we should just be cheap and give away all of our work. And people don't understand the overhead and the cost. There's a ton. Like, people have no clue what it takes to own a shop. And, even in my small shop, the overhead that I have is crazy. People lose their minds when I tell them what it costs, even I don't open my doors. And I'm like, it's expensive. It's not cheap. All of these things cost money. And it's a vehicle is the second most expensive things most people spend on in their lives besides a house. So you're going to spend the most money on a vehicle of some sort, and you need to take care of it. And that costs money. And my time and knowledge aren't free. And none of all these tools and subscriptions and
subscriptions are not cheap anymore.
All of that stuff costs money, and so I got to pay for it. And then I got to pay for my techs well, and I got to give my techs benefits and compete with these other industries who are doing so much more than we are as a whole, and they don't have to buy tools. I shared a story on my Instagram the other day of an HVAC company, and they had an entire table laid out showing what they give their new HVAC techs, it's a table full of tools, boots, clothes, like a whole bunch of like just random goodies, a van loaded down with tools, like, and they're not getting paid garbage money. They're getting paid extremely well with benefits and all of these things. And I'm like, we're competing with that because a mechanic, a technician, whatever you want to call them, can go from our industry and go be an HVAC tech tomorrow because we're working on every single system. And so we have to have the knowledge of all these other trades, but we're not charging like that. We're, I would say, 15 to 20 years behind on what our labor charges are and what we actually bill for stuff.
How much do technicians really make? At WrenchWay, we work with some of the best shops and dealerships across the country, and we've discovered that technicians often earn more than what some online sources suggest. For example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports that technicians make an average of $47,000 per year, but we know that's not reflective of the true earning potential of technicians. We've teamed up with ASE to create an online technician pay tool, a free, easy-to-use resource for both aspiring technicians and those already in the automotive and diesel industries. This tool lets you explore real pay data with customizable searches by industry, shop type, location, and experience level. Check it out at wrenchway.com/pay or follow the link in the show notes. We also encourage current technicians to anonymously submit their own pay data to help make the tool even better for everyone. Lastly, thank you for your continued support as we work to promote and improve careers in automotive and diesel. We couldn't do it without you. I want to talk about that communication style to a customer, and I'm sure anybody listening to this has probably seen you on social media at some point. Is there an opportunity to use social media as a platform to help educate the customer, and maybe in a way that's not just saying, do you know I just paid $12,000 for the Snap-on card out here or whatever, whatever it is, yes. Right? Like without just kind of telling them that this is an expensive venture, like still being able to properly communicate that, hey, in order for us to do our jobs and do it very, very well, we've got to charge accordingly so that we can continue to pay our staff, that we can continue to get the best tools, we can continue to get the best training. What's the communication strategy that you've seen be effective from a shop's perspective to a customer?
So there's absolutely a great way to do it. I will say there's very few shop owners doing these things. Again, like social media is its whole, it's another full-time job. Like it's another job for me. There is absolutely a good way to do it. Royalty Auto does a really good job with it. They're the best example I can give for that. And the issue I've found with social media is controversy drives a lot of videos, especially in the automotive field. And typically what you'll see is an owner talk about these things, and then the comments are all like, oh, you shouldn't be charging for that. That's a ripoff.
I've seen a lot of that.
But I keep reminding these shop owners when they do videos like parts margins. That's the big one. That's like, we shouldn't be charging more for parts. I just tell people this is an argument that I stopped. I just don't do it anymore because 99.9% of the people commenting on that will never step foot in a professional shop in their life. They're either going to do it themselves, they're going to go to a friend of a friend, a shade tree mechanic, backyard mechanic. That's fine. That's okay. Like, I have no problem with people doing that. They should not have a problem with me running a professional business that has a profit, because I tell owners all the time, if you're not making a profit, you think you're helping all of these people. But when you go out of business, who are you helping?
Yeah.
You're no longer helping anybody. You can't support your family. Your technicians can't support themselves and their families, so on and so forth. The idea should be, for most, is you want to grow. Most of us start a shop to grow and build into this thing and help more people. We help them with good customer service, good just service, good work, good warranties, whatever that may be for them, whatever that value is for them, we charge for that, and they're happy to pay it. And so that's, you have to ignore that online craziness.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is hard.
It's kind of constant. And even you make such good points there, because a lot of times, I'm sure you've heard it as well, at shops where a customer comes in and says, well, I looked up that part online and it was this. And you're like, okay, like you still like, maybe you don't understand the business. And in a lot of cases, maybe it's not the customer you want in the first place.
I think it does, but this has worked for me. This may not work for everybody because you have to be confident. Like you have to know why you're saying this. But I just tell people flat out, and it's worked great for me. I have nothing to hide from people. I tell them there's 3 reasons why I don't allow you to supply your own parts. Number 1 is we make money off the part. I get that right out of the way. I say we make money on the parts. Either I make money on the parts and labor, or my labor's super high and don't make money on the parts. I don't really care which way you want it. I have to make money to run a business and stay profitable. If you're not okay with that, that's okay. I'm not the business for you. And I just tell them that's exactly how I lay it out, just like I said it right there. 2, it's a liability issue. If I use your part, something happens and it breaks, it's a cheap part, whatever the case is, and you get into an accident, I'm now held liable because me as the professional, I used your cheap, crappy part, and I knew it was a cheap, crappy part, and I installed it, and so now I'm held liable for that. Number 3 is efficiency. Like, we're not, if I use your part and it's wrong or whatever it happens and we have to get a different part or retrofit it or whatever it is, now I'm losing money because I'm waiting on the correct part or we have to order it. And I tell shop owners from the shop owner side of it is you're losing twice. You're losing because you're losing on the parts margin, but you're also losing because your bay's filled with someone who's not willing to pay you your profit margin. So the person that normally would be in there is not in there. So now you've lost on the customer that should be in there, and you've lost on the parts. So now you've lost twice. So the perspective, it's a wrong perspective in my opinion.
I agree. And I think that customer that you're talking about too is also going to be the one that even beats you up after the fact as well, right? And it's not worth it. I think the longer you go in business, the more comfortable you become with the fact that not everybody's maybe the right client for you, and
they're not.
It's okay to fire sometimes.
It's okay to say no. I just did a video on that recently. Like, it's absolutely okay to say no. It's one of the best skill sets you can create as a business owner, no matter what industry you're in. Because, like you said, not every client's going to be your client, and that's okay. And those people that I tell, like, if you're not okay with me making money, it's not personal. It's business. I have a shop for you. Yep. I have a whole list of shops that I recommend out on, for this, because I don't do Euros, I don't do diesels, I'm not cheap, I have a really big like a long warranty. I use high-end parts, or high-quality parts, like we were talking about it yesterday, like a timing chain job. I do it one way and one way only. If they don't want it done that way and they don't want everything replaced, I'm not the shop for them. It's okay. Here's a shop that will put whatever you want. Like, if you want to just replace a chain and nothing else, or just a chain and tensioners, here's your shop. I do chains, guides, tensioners, seals, the whole gambit while I'm in there, because I know what's going to happen if I don't. 6 months later, something fails, we're back in there. They're ticked at me because, hey, we were just in there. You just spent all this money. It's either going to be done right or not at all, at least at my shop. But that's the joys of being the shop owner. You get to make those decisions. And if somebody else wants to make that decision,
they can do their own thing.
That's why I have a list of shops that I send people to, because there's a client for everybody. There really is.
Well, I think the transparency part that you talked about is so key with a customer too, right? Not shying away from the fact that you need to make a profit to be in business. And I think a lot of industry gets uncomfortable in that conversation about making a profit. And I think sometimes we've got to remember how skilled we are as a group, right? When you see a good technician do good work, it's a thing of beauty. It's a work of art, right? Like they do some incredibly great stuff. And so you got to keep that in mind when you're having that customer conversation, to have the confidence. And I love your approach, because it does feel like you're coming in with confidence right off the bat. That makes that kind of difficult conversation pretty clear and concise. And there are a lot of us that want to make people happy all the time. They're not going to be happy regardless if you take in that job that's not a fit for you.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of those jobs aren't worth it. And like, back on the value thing, I feel like we're one of the worst industries to undervalue ourselves, and I don't know where that comes from. I've thought a lot about it. We are extremely valuable, and it's something you really have to shift your mindset about. You have to really sit down and convince yourself and tell yourself, I'm worth it. And maybe that's because of the toxic culture. Maybe that's whatever it is, or maybe that's because society looks down on us. Even Hollywood, and when they do movies and video or TV shows, it always makes us look like the dirty grease monkey. That's not. That's
Shane
not,
Gillis isn't helping us out right now.
None of that stuff, helps our image as a whole, but we're way better than that.
Yeah.
We just have to believe it too, and you have to be confident when you're talking to people about it as well. So
When you look back over the frustrations that you had coming in as a technician to that business owner role, is there anything that you would tell your younger self about what to prepare for in making that venture?
as far as like switching from technician to shop owner,
Yeah.
learn your numbers. Learn your numbers. Like, being a good technician does not make you a good shop owner. They're nothing of the same. There's very few similarities, if any at all. You have to learn your numbers about the business. It's one of the things I think we shy away from because we don't know anything about it. And I don't want to say don't start off cheap, because I did.
Yeah.
I started off cheap, and I don't know if it helped me or hurt me. I don't know, because, obviously we're here now. But don't start off too cheap. That would be like, you don't need to be cheap. We think just because we're a smaller shop, we're not offering what the dealership's offering, we're not doing all of these things, that we have to be cheap. You do not have to be cheap. In many cases, we're doing a lot more than dealerships. And I'm not saying anything bad about dealerships. I came from the dealership. I have over 7 years experience in the dealership. But as the independent world, we feel like we need to be cheaper than them, and we're working on way more than them. So we have to know a lot more. We have to have a lot more equipment because we're working on everything. So there's just a lot of differences there. And so just keep that in mind. Those would be the couple things for sure. I mean, there's a lot of more advice for sure, but those two things for sure would be like, you don't need to be cheap, and you definitely need to learn your numbers.
Yeah.
And do some sort of communication, like learn how to be a better communicator if you're now the technician, because there's this weird thing where technicians hate advisors and they hate how much they make, and they shouldn't make as much. And I say all the time, you have no clue, because that's why you see so many shops fail, is because it's the technician turned shop owner who's now communicating with people who's never communicated with people, and they assume that you just say, yep, you need brakes. Well, no, it's because there's 5 other shops down the street where they'll do cheaper than you. This is my mantra. There's always somebody willing to do it cheaper.
100%.
Always.
Yeah.
There's 5 shops down the road that'll do it cheaper than you. It's not about just saying you need brakes. It's about communicating the importance and your value of why it's best to do business with you. I tell new customers that call in that's never done business with me, I tell them, I'm not the cheapest. I'm not always the most expensive. Sometimes I am. I'm the best value. So I'm like, if you're looking for the best value, I'm your shop. If you're looking for the cheapest, I'm not. I got a guy for you. If you're looking for the most expensive, I got another place for you. Like, what are you looking for? And I'll help you find that.
Tailor it to that.
And it works. I convert a decent, I wouldn't say like definitely not all of them, but I would say quite a bit more than a lot of people, because I just explain it that way to them.
When you think back to your time as a technician and you thought about, I'm sure it went through your head a million times on, I'm going to start a shop, I'm going to pay my people better, I'm going to do all of this stuff. And I hear that from a lot of technicians turned owners of shops, that, or even current technicians, that I'm going to start a business someday and I'm going to pay my people better than what they're paying me. Yeah. Do you think there'd be, and I've had a lot of conversations with technicians where I kind of shine a light on the numbers to them and have those open, transparent, we talked about transparency earlier, being able to explain the overhead to them and being able to get them to understand the business as a whole, and that it's not a cheap business to run. Do you think there's any positive impact there by having those conversations?
100%. Absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. Now, I will say, like, I do a lot of videos and social media stuff on the technician side and the owner side, because I'm still technically the technician. And I personally feel shop owners need to take the first step. I get that there's horrible technicians out there and not great ones. They're just not, they think they're, God's gift to earth, and they're not really that good. I get that, but shop owners definitely need to take the first step and start making some changes and show that they're going in the right direction.
Yes.
Because there's so many technicians that have such a skewed experience. Before I started my shop, I did not have a good experience in 2 dealerships that I worked at and 2 independent shops. So they were all toxic.
That's tough.
So if that tells you anything, that's enough for me to know, okay, the top, whoever, the owner, the dealership, whatever it is, there needs to be a culture shift, some sort of culture shift to make it more conducive for technicians and help them with things like career paths and help them get better with training and just ask, like, maybe walk by and ask them how they're doing. How's their life? How's their wife? How's their kids?
What a concept, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a very simple thing. And at all of the places that I worked, except the first one, I didn't get that. So the first one I had a relationship. There's just a lot of screaming and yelling, of course.
Yeah, and I think we heard that come through in our 2024 Voice of Technician survey. We're about to launch that again here in a month or two. And the communication thing was so big, and just feeling like you're not beneath somebody, right? Like where hey, we're on the same playing field, like we're battling as a team.
Yeah.
It's not, I once had a boss that was basically came out and told everybody that they're replaceable, right? And you're like, okay, maybe not that leadership style, like that. I don't know that that's going to be as effective anymore, but I think there's an opportunity for shops out there that are listening to this to be heads and shoulders above what the standard shop is, right? Because there are still plenty of maybe subpar shops that aren't going to ever understand this concept. So at a local level, what can you do to be the change for that? What can you do to be the leader in bringing good leadership and having really, really happy techs that are well taken care of, and having those conversations around the business model with a technician so you can say, hey, if we want to treat you really, really well, here's some of the data that is going to influence how we can pay you moving forward.
Yeah.
I just think there's so much of an opportunity for so many shops up there to be a leader.
I agree, and I think communicating it from the shop owner's perspective to the technician is like, here's what we want to do. We want to pay you more. We want to give you more benefits. We want to do this. Here's some expectations from you that we want to see. We want to see you on time, or obviously every owner's going to have some different things, but like me, on time's one of those things. I want them to be on time, but some owners are okay with them not being exactly on time. We want to see this many hours, and it doesn't have to be a flat rate thing, but there is some sort of, like, you need to see some sort of output in hours, whether that's they're getting paid flat rate, hourly, salary, hybrid pay, doesn't matter. There needs to be some sort of efficiency in there. Not perfection, but something to meet the expectations of, hey, we're paying you this. We need to make this as a business. The only way we do that is if everybody turns this many hours or whatever, however it's done. And so that's a big part of it. But communicating all of that, having an open conversation, and just being a little bit vulnerable as the owner to understand and know that you don't know everything. You have to be willing to take a look in the mirror and realize, like, that's what I had to do. I was like, man, I suck. I have no idea what I'm doing. I need to make some changes, because if not, this business isn't going to last. So, I had to realize that I didn't know what I was doing. So it's not easy. It sucks. You have to have a really big ego check, but it's part of it.
It is. And this industry will give you plenty of ego checks over the years, right?
There's always cars that'll give you ego checks for sure. They're always there. There's no doubt.
Something else that can give you ego checks are comments in social media. I want to talk about, it's kind of my rough segue to your social media following and how you got involved with social media.
Yeah.
You've done a heck of a job growing an audience.
Thank you.
What drove you to start that?
So I started off doing tool reviews. That was kind of like I loved watching tool reviews. And then I thought, well, if other people can do it, why can't I? So I started doing my own tool reviews. And then at that time, the marketer that I was using, she was a friend of mine, or she still is a friend, but she was my marketer at that time. She was doing a 30 days reel challenge. And so that's what got me consistent. And so I did a reel for 30 days.
Interesting.
And so that forced me to just, okay, I'm going to do one every single day. And then I really enjoyed it. And so I just kept doing that. Well, naturally, people asked me, are you the shop owner, whatever? Well, then people started asking me more as they started following me. And then that's where the videos that I do, like talking about the industry, and I started going to training events. And then I've worked a lot with my marketing company now and taught classes at training events and to shop owners about social media. And so now I have like a really big passion about sharing, like, hey, this is what I've done to grow my shop. This is what worked for me. Here's what rough numbers you should be looking at and aiming for. And so that's kind of turned it into its own thing. So everything's just progressively grown. But Yeah, it's a lot of work for sure, and yes, there's a lot of negative comments for sure. This can be fun. So I love my haters. I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the ones that follow me but don't follow me. I appreciate that.
It is funny how many people follow somebody and then just do nothing but hate that person, and you're like, okay, that like you could easily unsubscribe and not watch the stuff. But how do you balance that moving forward with a growing social media following as well as a growing shop? There's some things that overlap, I'm sure, in your day-to-day life, but there are some things where it's like, I got to sit down and do this social media stuff, whatever it might be. How do you balance your schedule as you move forward?
You don't.
You don't? Yeah.
There is. So eventually, like, I am a big proponent of hiring like a full-time editor, somebody that comes in the shop every day, like even if it's only for a couple hours and that's all they're doing is just filming content, doing interview style, whatever that may be, looks for that shop. If there's a shop that wants to do that, like it's one of the best things you can do. Somebody who knows what they're doing, obviously. But if you look at some of these larger shop content creators or businesses, that's what they've done. And that makes the most sense. Like you need somebody that knows trends and things that are going on. Cause I love doing the trends and they're fun and lighthearted. And I like that type of content, like just more like just enjoy, like it's already a rough industry as is. Let's have some more fun with it. So, I think that's for me for sure. And I think a lot of shops could do that, but there's usually somebody in the shop that's interested in it already. So you could use someone, even if you have to incentivize them. I think it's something more shops should do more of.
Totally agree.
And talk about these things that we've talked about, because educating the general public is important and they don't know. And so if all they're getting their information from is all these toxic people and the people saying stuff like, oh, you got ripped off. No, they didn't actually get ripped off. No. You know, you just don't know what it takes to run a business, and you've done everything from cheap parts on Amazon for all your life, and you don't ever tell us about everything that's broken, and you've had to do it 6 times. You know, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So,
do you ever get in a rut where maybe you're not feeling like that day you want to shoot content?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that happens quite often. It is hard to do both. Like I said, social media is like its own full-time job. So obviously I have the shop, full-time job. I'm married. I have 2 kids. I have a life outside of the shop. So it is hard. It does become a lot. And, you know, there's content block and that all stuff is real. But, you know, I've learned over time to get out of those ruts as quickly as possible. So if it's like take time off, go do something crazy just to kind of reset my mind, go hang out with friends, whatever, like I've learned that a lot more. And that's huge credit to my wife. She reminds me, hey, you're having a rough time here recently. Like, what's going on? Do you need some time off? Like, she's my like
can
pulse.
Read you.
Yeah, she does an amazing job. So, you know, without her, the shop would have closed 6 times by now, maybe more. So she's my anchor for sure. She's awesome.
You would have fired yourself.
There's no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt about that for sure.
I have the same thing. I'm very fortunate. I think my wife can read me enough to say, okay, something's not right here, and drive me to have a conversation when maybe I don't want to have a conversation, right? And that's, you know, I think as we close up shop here, that's one of the important factors too that I look at for that young technician, really anybody, but, you know, who you marry has a big impact on your life. Who you surround yourself has a big impact on your life. And, you know, you go out, and if you're that technician and you're going out on social media and just reading negative comments all the time, it's really easy to get in that rut in their daily lives, right? So just the importance of who you surround yourself with. And I think it just has such an impact on the decisions you make and the stuff you do.
Yeah, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So true, too.
And you are going to, the body can only take so much poison, however that comes, whether it's negativity, garbage on the internet, stuff like that. So it is extremely important. So even if you're not married, don't have a girlfriend, don't have a boyfriend, whatever it is, stop surrounding yourself with negative, garbage people. You don't need that in your life. I tell people all the time, music, what you're listening to, what you're reading, what you're watching, all of those things, what you fill your body with, makes a night and day difference. Not just those things, but food, energy drinks, like all of this stuff. You all get your own lives and make your own choice to do what you want. But I'm telling you from a health perspective of my life, I had a huge, crazy health scare last year, and I started making some major changes, and it's changed a lot of other things in my life as well.
Really?
And so that's a big, important part that we don't talk about enough is the health side of things. So you got to take care of yourself. If you're not here to take care of your wife, your kids, your friends, your family, whatever the business, then you're not helping anybody anymore. So you got to focus on you first, and then that goes out.
Oh my goodness, we could have a whole other conversation on that. I am a huge proponent of technician health, taking care of their bodies. If they want to do this for 30 years, we've seen those technicians that didn't take care of their bodies, and I think a lot of times it's easy to point at the industry and say, "Well, this just beats up your body." Well, you avoided the fact to talk about they just very much abused their body over that time, and I old technician friends that were guilty of that 350 small block, I'm just going to lift it up out of the, so it just, I think the further our industry evolves, the more our culture as an industry is open to, hey, you are doing an exercise routine and that's cool. I want to see you continue to get better and really propel each other rather than try to drag each other down.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And again, you just have to try to ignore. I know not everybody's as good at it. Thankfully, I've had really thick skin, and I don't mind, butting heads with people and arguing with them. It's all good. I don't take very much personal. So you really have to learn to not focus on that stuff and focus on you and what matters in your life. And that's what's important.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I love your insights and love your what you've built. I mean, you've done an incredible job, and I can't wait to see you in the future kind of continue to build that.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.